Hey y'all. Um, I've posted a video that actually got off of YouTube that I thought was pretty valuable, talking about peer pressure, which is a biggie in adolescence. Contrary to popular belief, by the time you're in high school, peer pressure is beginning to wane for most people. Not always the case for everybody. Uh, Peer pressure really begins early in life. You make a break from your parents. You're not really um, ignorant of peer pressure. You just don't really have a grasp on it before school. I mean, you have friends and excuse me, friends in the neighborhood, etc., that you want to impress or whatever the case is. But parents play the major role in terms of your behaviors if you're normal until you start school. And then there's a shift that takes place. And it's a fairly rapidly happening thing because you now are in a social situation where you can't reach out and there's mom or dad immediately available to you. You're in school, they're not nearby. So you begin to redraw the guidelines as far as who has influence. And it's not like you do it on purpose. It's almost an automatic occurrence for most kids. So peers become more important than parents. This thing peaks in about the eighth or ninth grade, believe it or not. And then it begins to wane. Now, again, we're talking about averages and normal here. We're not talking about each individual adolescent. So I'm sure you know that there are exceptions to this. There's always exceptions in psychology. So this is one of those areas that's sometimes more pronounced, but nonetheless, that's that's what that I wanted to get across in that first video. And then I want to change gears completely because this is of the topics you're reading this week. This is pretty serious here. This is rage and violence and beyond violence, if you want to call it that. Pretty serious stuff. And I'm not gonna talk to you about the nuances of it. Copycat syndrome, accessibility of guns, violent video games, so on and so forth, media violence. You go see a movie and everybody's killing everybody else. I want to talk to you about the counseling aspect of this. As I stated earlier in the semester, I want you to be familiar with what you would do as a counselor. So, and again, the rest of the videos, for the most part, are going to deal with that. So away we go. What do you need to begin with? You need to know how to gauge the threat. What does that mean? You look for specific warning signs. So here we have a child whose um, reputation is violent or potentially violent. They're in trouble quite often. They may be a loner. They could be just plain old bizarre. Your textbook calls them that. Somebody that seems to be preoccupied. They call it brooding. If you want to call it that, it's fine. I like preoccupation with uh, other things that you can't identify. So you need to weigh that threat. Do they make threats? And more than just one, do they follow up on those? Uh, do they punch walls? Just how do they manage their behaviors? Have they turned to drugs or alcohol? Have they become immersed in computers, computer games? A lot of discussion about that right now. And is it damaging social parts of humanity, so to speak? Uh, so this is the process of gauging. Just where do you think this person is? And then you can do things like set up tip lines and try to catch violence before it manifests, and so on and so forth. You want to watch for adolescents who are being bullied who become bullies. Um, there are historics behind this. Klebold, Harris, so on and so forth. They were bullied and then they became bullies. That's how they wanted to strike back. Um, they express upset. Trying to think of a good word, and that fits. They're upset because they've been mistreated. I'm very close to someone who was mistreated all through school because of their weight. That person did not turn to violence or bullying, but they are very resistant now to any sort of perceived negative view of themselves, not their view, outsiders' views. And they have an attitude about being pushed around. Don't talk to me that way, for example, because I'll deck you. Uh, and this was born out of their mistreatment from their peers as they went through their childhood. So you have to be careful of that. Keep an eye out for that. You can have community advisory councils. I know this sounds like uh, second removed from the situation, but it really isn't. You got to do something. So I have an advisory council maybe, and you have people from inside and outside the schools, and they um, keep in touch with students, faculty, school administrators, clergy, the community at large, to try to um, mitigate the circumstances. Communication is the key here. You can even set up something that's called a bully intervention program. We have a very big problem with bullying in this country, but it's not new, believe me. You ask anybody that's been through school, and they're going to tell you that we all knew who the bullies were. You know who the bullies are, and so it's been around forever. Um, what do? Well, in a good world, you would bring the bully in and say this is going to stop now, or there will be serious consequences. I don't know that happens very often in schools as it should, but nonetheless, you need to have some intervention program. You need to have an anonymous way for somebody to report bullying, so that the bully doesn't know the person that they're bullying has ratted them out. They can probably figure it out, but hopefully by that point, uh, it doesn't matter. The problem is taken care of. You can provide options for long-term school suspensions. Um, Maybe they have to go through some behavior training or whatever the case is. There are a lot of options there. You have to be careful how you do those because it can be borderline discrimination. Uh, the Parents can be part of the problem, as we all know. Detached parents. So what do? The parents have to be educated. They have to be convinced that something needs to be done with their child. Um, they have to be firm in their decisions, and they have to stick by those. You don't set down a set of laws and then let them be violated. Just shouldn't happen because that's double talk. You're a paper parent if you do that. Keep up with the the adolescent's friends. Who are they hanging with? That's old hat. We always have said you got to hang with the right people. Talking to others, uh, people around the situation, not necessarily the adolescent themselves. Listen to the adolescent. There's connection between spending time with children and not. So you need to, if you're a parent, you need to be involved in your student, in your child, excuse me, in your adolescent's life without being a helicopter. Kind of a hard thing to do, but you have to do it nonetheless. And then the practical things, keep firearms locked up, keep them in a safe place. And then something I don't speak of frequently, but I kind of had the attitude that you already knew these kind of things. Talk to them about God. Talk to them about the Lord, and tell them what that's all about. Being a Christian university, kind of maybe I'm remiss. I kind of assume that most of you would assume that that would be probably the baseline for everything. Maybe you don't. So here you go. Reveal God to them, and if they're not listening, uh, sit down and have a long conversation about it. So that's just some tip of the iceberg kind of things. I can't give you specific counseling attacks, not attacks, specific um, counseling guidelines for these kind of mental and physical attacks that teenagers sometimes engage themselves in. But at least it's an idea of what maybe is available out there. I'm going to tell you, this is an often talked about topic, this bullying business, this violence business, so on and so forth. Gunfire. I think your textbook clumps all this into one category. Yeah, we're dead serious about it, not to make a pun. We're very serious about it, but nobody seems to know what direction to go in. And it worries me that I'm afraid they think they're going to hurt somebody's feelings. You got to get, you got to, you got to change the standard. Uh, and I'm not trying to get political here. This is just common sense, and everybody knows this. There needs to be a set of rules, and they need to be you need to abide by those, and it's very hard to do. Our country is a free country, so that plays a role. I'm not going to talk about who's for guns, who's against guns. That's a different discussion. But the counseling part of it would take into consideration um, the aspect of violence perpetrated by the use of a gun. So there you have it. A brief kind of an idea as to how diversified counseling gets and how sometimes it doesn't seem to be addressing the topic when in fact it really is. So there you are. Hope you're not totally confused, and I'll be back with you soon.